My husband and mother-in-law treated me as if I were just a babysitter they didn't pay. You're lucky we let you stay here, she laughed. I smiled and packed my things. Years later, they were standing outside my office begging for a job. Back when I was 28, I thought I was in love. I really believed that. Terrence wasn't flashy. He was safe. Clean-cut, polite, always said the right thing in front of people. He'd grown up in Raleigh, and his mother Maureen had been a widow for years by then. They were close, but I thought it was just a normal mother-son bond. We met at the front desk of the dental clinic I worked at. He came in with a chipped molar and left with my number. I know, romantic, right? He made me feel seen. Not swept off my feet, but noticed. Appreciated. At the time, that was more than enough. We got married after about a year of dating. Small ceremony, nothing fancy. I wore a dress from a consignment shop and we held the reception in the backyard of his cousin's place. I was happy. Nervous, but happy. A few months in, Maureen had a minor hip surgery. She asked to stay with us for just a few weeks. She never left. At first, I tried to make it work. I cooked for 3, cleaned up after them both, worked a full-time job, and took classes at night, hoping to build something better for our future. I wanted to finish my business degree, maybe even start something of my own one day. But every time I mentioned ambition or long-term plans, I'd get the same blank stare from Terrence, like I was speaking a foreign language. Terrence hadn't had a stable job in years. He'd drift from one part-time thing to another, always blaming the boss, the commute, the coworkers. Meanwhile, I was paying the bills. Mortgage, groceries, utilities, every dollar came from my paychecks. But if you listened to Maureen, you'd think I was freeloading. She'd complain about how the laundry smelled, how the meals weren't seasoned right, how the girls' shoes were too cheap, how I needed to be more attentive to my husband's needs. And every time I tried to talk to Terrence about it, he'd shrug. She's old, he'd say. She's just set in her ways. But her ways included telling me I was lucky she let me sleep under her roof, even though I paid for the roof. When our first daughter, Ava, was born, things got worse. I was exhausted, trying to juggle a newborn and work. Maureen offered help, but her help came with judgment and backhanded comments. You're always tired. Maybe motherhood just isn't for everyone, she'd say while holding Ava, rocking her like she was hers. By the time our second daughter, Nora, arrived, I was barely holding it together. I'd come home from long shifts and find Maureen sitting in front of the TV with Terrence while the girls ran wild, still in the same clothes from the night before. Dishes piled in the sink. Toys everywhere. And no dinner. The final straw came on a rainy Wednesday in September. I walked through the door with takeout containers in my hand, because I hadn't had a moment to cook all week. Nora, barely 3, was crying in the corner of the living room, holding her stomach. Ava was trying to comfort her, saying she was hungry too. I asked Maureen if they'd eaten. She didn't even look away from the TV. Oh, I thought you'd handle that. You're the mother, aren't you? And when I said, calmly, that they needed to be fed, she laughed and said it. You're lucky we let you stay here. Just like that. No shame. No hesitation. I looked at Terrence. He didn't even blink. Just kept flipping through channels like I was a noise in the background. That night, I went upstairs, packed 2 bags, one for me, one for the girls, and left. No screaming. No dramatic exit. I just walked out. We moved into a 1-bedroom apartment 30 minutes away. It was small. The floors creaked. The walls were thin. But it was ours. I called the electric company under my own name. Paid my own rent. Took double shifts when I had to. Studied at night while the girls slept. It wasn't easy. It was exhausting, lonely, and terrifying at times. But we were free. Terrence didn't fight for custody. He didn't try to visit. I think part of him was relieved, less responsibility. Maureen never called to check on the girls. Not once. And I never looked back. I worked my way up from admin assistant to marketing associate, then team lead. It took years, but I clawed my way into a management position. And once I had experience and savings, I partnered with 2 former colleagues to launch a digital branding firm. We started from nothing. Literally. Folding tables in a shared workspace. But we believed in what we were building. I poured everything into that company, my skills, my time, my creativity. And slowly, it started to grow. Within 3 years, we were a known name in the Carolinas. Our client list grew, our office expanded, and I found myself as CEO of something real, something I built from scratch. I didn't date for a long time. Honestly, I was scared. Scared of falling into another version of Terrence. Scared of losing myself again. But eventually, I met someone who saw me, not what I could do for them, not what I could provide, but me. And for the first time in over a decade, I allowed myself to feel safe. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, my receptionist buzzed my office. "There's a Maureen and Terrence here? They said they have an appointment?" My hands went cold. I hadn't heard those names in years. But sure enough, when I walked into the lobby, there they were. Maureen looked thinner, tired. Her hair was gray and unkempt. Terrence wore a wrinkled shirt and scuffed shoes. They looked small. He gave me a sheepish smile. "Hey, Selena. We, didn't know you were running this place. We're looking for work." Maureen didn't say a word. Just clutched her purse with both hands, like she was bracing herself. I didn't gloat. I didn't throw their words back at them. I just looked at them and said, "You're lucky I let you in here." Then I turned around and walked back to my office. I didn't even need to think about it. I instructed HR to send them a formal rejection. Not out of revenge. Out of respect, for myself. For the woman who packed a diaper bag and walked out into the night with nothing but 2 babies and a broken heart. For the woman who built her own name, brick by brick. I didn't hear anything from them after that lobby moment. Not immediately, anyway. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about it. I sat in my office with the door closed, the city humming outside the windows. The building had floor-to-ceiling glass, sleek finishes, polished concrete floors. It looked nothing like the life I left behind, but the woman sitting behind that desk still had the same backbone she discovered the night she walked out. I remember thinking, they're struggling. They're desperate. They must have gone through a lot to end up here. But I didn't feel pity. Not exactly. It's hard to pity people who tried to make you feel worthless. The next day, I looked through our general inbox out of curiosity. There it was, Terrence's application. He'd attached a resume that looked thrown together. Retail jobs. 2-month stints. A consulting business with no real description. Under references, he'd listed 3 names, a guy he once did landscaping with, a woman from a call center, and me. Me. Maureen didn't submit a resume. She wrote an email to HR saying she was looking to get back into the workforce and was open to anything. She signed it formerly a full-time homemaker and caretaker. That part almost made me laugh. Caretaker. She hadn't taken care of anyone except herself. Still, I didn't delete the email. I didn't write back either. I forwarded both to HR, attached a short note, "Not a good fit for the team. No further follow-up necessary." That was it. Over the next few months, I didn't think about them much. Life kept moving. My girls were growing up faster than I could keep up with. Ava got into photography, she had a sharp eye and an obsession with vintage film. Nora was obsessed with animals and had started volunteering at a shelter on weekends. Every now and then she'd ask about her dad, but only in that vague, removed way that kids do when they're trying to understand absence more than the person. I always answered honestly. He wasn't ready to be a parent. And I wasn't going to let us wait around for him to figure it out. That was all I ever said. They deserved the truth, but not the bitterness. I hadn't told them about what happened at the office. I wasn't hiding it, I just hadn't decided if it was worth revisiting. Until one weekend in the fall, Ava came into the kitchen holding her phone. "Mom, why is Dad following me on Instagram?" I froze. I didn't even know he had Instagram. I didn't know he knew how to use Instagram. "Did he message you?" I asked. She shook her head. "No. Just followed. His bio says he's rebuilding. Whatever that means." Nora peeked over her shoulder. "Is that Grandma in the photo with him?" Sure enough, it was a grainy selfie. Terrence and Maureen in front of what looked like a strip mall, wearing matching polo shirts with a logo that read Sunlight Printing and Signs. I did a quick search. It was a tiny, family-owned print shop in Matthews, about 25 minutes from the city. The business had a website, but it was outdated and clearly hadn't been touched in years. I had a feeling they were trying to start over. I didn't tell the girls not to respond. I didn't tell them to block him either. I just said, "You don't owe anyone access to your life. Especially someone who gave up the right to be in it." They understood more than I expected. Ava quietly removed him from her followers. Nora didn't say anything, but I saw her set her phone face down on the counter, as if it suddenly felt heavier. A few weeks passed, then the emails started. Not from Terrence or Maureen, but from random Gmail accounts with vague names. One read, "You really gonna let your kids grow up without their father?" Another, "You act like you're better than everyone now. You're not. You just got lucky." They weren't signed, but I didn't need a signature. I knew the cadence. The tone. The cowardice. For a moment, I wanted to respond. To rip them apart word by word. But then I realized, that's what they wanted. They wanted to see if they could still get a reaction from me. To make me prove something to them. I didn't respond. I forwarded them to my legal team instead. We sent out a cease and desist. Polite, but firm. The messages stopped. But life? Life kept getting louder. Fresh Pivot was expanding into Atlanta. We were negotiating a deal with a regional chain of co-working spaces to rebrand their image, and I was flying back and forth a lot. It was the kind of work I used to dream about back when I was reheating leftovers in a cluttered kitchen while the TV blasted from the living room. One morning, as I was sipping coffee at the office, one of our interns, Bree, a bright kid fresh out of UNC, walked up looking hesitant. "Selena? Sorry to bother you, but someone's downstairs asking to speak with you." I sighed. "Client?" She shook her head. "No, he says he's family." I knew before she finished. I took the elevator down, heels clicking on the marble floors. I saw him through the glass before the doors opened. Terrence. This time, alone. He looked worse than before. Skinny, pale, eyes hollow. He clutched a manila folder like it was a lifeline. When he saw me, he stood too quickly and stumbled a bit. "Selena. Just give me 5 minutes. Please." I didn't say anything. Just looked at him. "I know I messed up," he started. "I know I failed you. Failed the girls. I'm not here to ask for money or pity or anything like that." I said nothing. He held out the folder. "Just read this. When you have time." I took it. Not for him. For closure. He nodded, gave a weak smile, and turned to leave. I didn't stop him. I didn't even open the folder until that night, long after the girls were asleep and the house was quiet. Inside were court documents, eviction notices, debt collections, and a typed letter. Not handwritten. Typed. In the letter, he admitted everything. That he knew what he did. That he didn't know how to be a man, a husband, or a father back then. That he'd listened to his mother more than he listened to me. That he saw the success I'd built and felt ashamed. That he didn't deserve a second chance, but he hoped the girls might give him a first one someday. It ended with a line that stuck with me. I used to think you left because you were cruel. Now I realize you left because you finally chose yourself. I didn't cry. I didn't feel anger. Just calm. I put the folder back in the envelope and tucked it into a drawer. Not to revisit it. Not to dwell. But to remind myself that even people who tried to hold you down might one day wake up. That doesn't mean you have to let them back in. Weeks passed after I read that letter. I didn't mention it to anyone. Not to the girls, not to my partner, not even to my best friend Danielle, who knew the entire history better than anyone. I didn't hide it out of fear or confusion. I just needed time. Time to decide what the letter meant, or if it meant anything at all. It sat in my desk drawer like a stone I wasn't ready to turn over. But life kept doing what it does. Moving forward. The Atlanta deal closed. Our team threw a launch party that Friday. The champagne was flowing, the mood was electric, and I caught myself laughing in a way I hadn't in a long time, openly, freely, head tilted back like I didn't have a single ghost whispering in my ear. When I got home late that night, my phone was buzzing. Missed call. Voicemail. Number I didn't recognize, but I knew exactly who it was. I let it sit until morning. Then I played it. His voice was hoarse. Shaky. Hey, it's Terrence. I know I said I wouldn't reach out again, but Maureen's in the hospital. Heart stuff. I thought you should know. In case the girls ever wanted to see her. I don't know. Maybe they don't. I get it. I'm sorry. Just thought I'd try. I sat there in silence for a long time after. Maureen. The woman who once told me I was a burden. Who told me my girls would grow up soft because I didn't discipline them like a real mother. The woman who laughed while I cleaned her dishes, made her meals, and begged her son to just be present. I didn't know what to feel. Guilt? No. Sympathy? Maybe. Not for who she was, but for what she became. A bitter, controlling woman who ended up with nothing but regret and a worn-out chair in a hospital room. I didn't want to go. But I also knew I needed to ask the girls. So I sat them down. We were in the living room. Ava had her sketch pad out, Nora curled up with her tablet and a throw blanket. I turned the volume down on the TV and told them exactly what I knew. That Maureen was sick. That Terrence had reached out. That there was no pressure, only choice. Ava didn't flinch. She never liked us, she said plainly. She acted like we weren't even her grandkids. Nora looked more conflicted. She was always the softer one. She bit her lip and asked, would it be wrong if I just didn't care? I smiled gently. No, honey. It wouldn't. We didn't go to the hospital. I didn't call back. A week later, I got a message from Terrence again. Just a short text, she's gone. No punctuation. No emotion. I stared at it for a few seconds, then turned my phone face down and went to make dinner. That was it. She died the way she lived, tight-lipped and controlling until the very end. But as much as I thought I was done with that part of my past, it had a funny way of finding cracks in the present. One rainy Monday morning, I pulled into the parking garage at work to find someone sitting on the curb, hoodie pulled over their head. I almost didn't recognize him. Terrence. He stood as I got out of my car, soaked through. Just wanted to say thanks. I blinked. For what? For the job rejection. The letter. For not making me feel worse than I already do. I said nothing. I wasn't sure what he was looking for, but I had no intention of giving it. He continued, you were right to leave. I used to think you'd come crawling back. That you needed me. But now I know. I was dead weight. And you? You were already halfway out the door when you realized it. He gave a small smile, sad, maybe sincere, and walked away before I could respond. I stood there for a while, letting the rain drip from my coat sleeves. There was something strangely final about it. Not closure, exactly, but the end of a chapter I'd left dog-eared for too long. That night, Ava knocked on my door. I was finishing up emails at my desk. "Can I ask you something?" she said, lingering in the doorway. "Always." She stepped in and sat on the edge of my bed. "If he ever asked to meet us again, what would you say?" I looked at her. She was 16 now, all sharp cheekbones and quiet wisdom. She was more grown than I wanted to admit. "I'd say that's up to you. I'd never force you. And I'd never stop you, either." She nodded, like she already knew. "I think I just wanted to hear you say that." She stood to leave, then turned around. "I don't think I hate him. I just think I don't need him." I smiled. "That's enough." Weeks passed again. Quietly. Peacefully. And then, another surprise. A letter came to the house. A real one, handwritten, sealed in a plain white envelope, no return address. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a simple card. No greeting. Just a message in slanted, messy handwriting. "I told myself you'd fail without us. I see now that you just needed to be free. I'm sorry for what I did to you. And what I let him become." No signature, but I didn't need one. Maureen must have written it before she died. Maybe in the hospital. Maybe even before that. Maybe when she saw my face in the lobby of that glass building, standing tall in the place she once mocked me for dreaming of. I didn't cry. But I did sit there for a long time. And I thought, some apologies come too late to repair anything, but they still matter. They're not for forgiveness. They're for release. And I'd been carrying less and less weight every day. Life, as it turns out, has a rhythm of its own. Sometimes it's chaos. Sometimes it's still. But every so often, it delivers the kind of full-circle moment that feels like it was scripted by the universe itself. It started with a phone call from a woman named Marcia. She worked for a mid-sized real estate firm that was launching a campaign for mixed-use developments across the Carolinas. They were a big deal. Deep pockets, legacy investors, terrible branding. She'd heard about Fresh Pivot from someone who attended our Atlanta launch. She said they were looking for a full-service agency to rebrand their entire image, from the website to investor materials to storefront signage. It would be a 6-figure contract. Possibly 7. We set a meeting for Thursday morning. They arrived at our office in a black Escalade. I remember it clearly because I was by the window when they pulled up. A driver opened the door, and Marcia stepped out, followed by her assistant, and then, one more man. It was Terrence. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. He was dressed neatly, khakis and a button-down, holding a leather portfolio like he belonged there. He didn't see me watching from the 5th floor. My heart didn't race. My palms didn't sweat. I just smiled. They were led up by our front desk team, and my executive assistant, Priya, gave me the heads up before knocking. "They're ready when you are." I walked into the boardroom with my head high, blazer pressed, heels sharp. The room quieted the second I entered. Terrence looked up. And I swear to God, he went pale. Not red. Not flustered. Pale, like every ounce of blood drained from his face in one breath. Marcia smiled and stood. "Selena, this is Terrence Webb." I know who he is," I said, calm as ever. I turned to her with a professional smile. "Please, have a seat." We went through the meeting like nothing had happened. I led the presentation. Terrence sat quietly, nodding, never once making eye contact with me again. When it was over, Marcia was glowing. "This is exactly what we need. We'll follow up with the contract and begin onboarding next week." We shook hands. The team filed out. Terrence lingered behind. When the door finally closed and it was just the two of us, he looked at me like he didn't know whether to speak or crawl away. "Selena," he started. I raised a hand. Don't. He stopped. I don't want an apology. I don't want an explanation. And I'm not angry. He swallowed hard. You once said I was lucky to be under your roof. That I needed you. I stepped closer. Let me be very clear, you don't work with this firm if I don't sign off. Your involvement puts this deal in jeopardy. I'm telling you that, not as your ex-wife, but as the CEO of this company. He stared at the floor. I will not make a scene, I added. But I will not work with you. Then I opened the boardroom door and nodded toward the exit. He didn't argue. He didn't speak. He just walked out. Later that evening, Marcia called me personally. She sounded uncomfortable. I'm so sorry, I didn't know the history there. Terrence, he didn't disclose any of that. If I'd known, you have nothing to apologize for, I told her. You have every right to bring in your preferred contacts. But as long as he's involved, we're not the agency for this project. There was a pause. Understood, she said. We'll move forward without him. I'll handle it internally. And she did. He was quietly dropped from the campaign 2 days later. No drama. No blow up. Just, gone. I never saw him again after that. But word travels fast. A few months later, I heard he'd moved out of state. Something about another fresh start. I didn't ask for details. And Maureen? Her name was never mentioned again. Not even by the girls. Speaking of which, Ava got accepted to NYU. Full ride. Nora started her own pet-sitting business in high school and had clients wrapped around the block by graduation. They turned out more than fine. I never remarried. I didn't need to. I found love again, real love, the steady kind. No drama. No chaos. Just warmth, laughter, and someone who never once made me feel like I owed them for breathing. One evening, a younger employee at the office, someone new to the team, stopped by my office after hours. I hope this isn't too forward, she said, but, how did you do it? I mean, I read your story in the local business journal. Single mom. CEO. Everything you've built. How? I thought for a second. I left the moment I realized I wasn't going to be rescued, I told her. And then I rescued myself. She nodded like it hit her somewhere deep. That's kind of badass. I smiled. Kind of. After she left, I looked around my office. The city twinkled through the windows. My daughter's framed photo sat on my shelf. A letter from NYU. A drawing of a dog Nora made when she was 8. A plaque with my name. And a simple folder in the back of the bottom drawer, a reminder of everything I survived. That folder used to feel heavy. Now? It's just paper. And me? I'm not a babysitter anymore. I'm the damn boss.